come, Ray. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball.
Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win. Now the 2-1.
Line drive to the base hit. Justice has scored a tying run. Green to the plate. And he is safe. Safe at the plate. The Braves go to the World Series.
Have reserved seats somewhere along one of the baselines that sat when they were children and cheered their heroes.
Gibson swings and a fly ball to deep right field. This is gonna be a home run. Unbelievable!
A 3-run home run for Bucky Dent. The Yankees now lead by a score of 3-2.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mazeroski has hit a 1-0 pitch over the left field fence at Ford Field to win the 1960 World Series.
They'll arrive at your door as innocent as children, longing for the past.
The Pope arrived at Yankee Stadium. As one enthusiastic announcer put it, he is standing on second base.
Reggie Jackson. Long drive right field. It is goodbye. Big World Series for Reggie Jackson. The Blue Jays are World Series champions as Joe Carter hits a 3-run home run.
Rack and roll. There's a left back. It's going to be, I believe, the Giants from the pennant. The Giants from the pennant. The Giants from the pennant.
The 0-1 pitch. A liner off Nagy's glove into center field. The Florida Marlins have won the World Series.
The memories will be so thick that I can brush them in their faces.
The 1-0 delivery to Fisk. He swings, long drive, left field. If it stays there, it's gone. Home run! The Red Sox win. And the series is...
Lolich fires, ball is hit high in the air. This should be the series. Freehand waving everybody away in foul territory. Detroit wins.
Here's the pitch to Willie. Here's a liner straight to Richardson. The ball game is over and the World Series is over. Willie McCovey hit it like a bullet. A line drive right.
Baseball to mark the time.
The Oakland A's take. I'll tell you what, we're having an earth.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Candlestick Park for Game 3 of the 1989 World Series.
It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again.
Frank Robinson, the right-hand batter.
Long drive to left field. Way back. It's hit goodbye. Home run.
Base hit loaded, 1 out. Pena in a jam. The Twins are gonna win the World Series. The Twins have won it.
Ozzie with 1 out. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run. And the
Willie Mays just brought this crowd to its feet with a catch, which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people.
This field, this game, is a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good, and it could be again.
Broadcasted live.
Hey! Who wants to have some fun?
There are balls coming from all over the place. Left field, center field, right field. See, this is the kind of thing, quite honestly, right now, that makes you want to see the Chicago Cubs team lose.
Now, you just saying you want to have fun, or do you really want to have fun?
It'll be fun.
Will the next person that sees anybody throw anything onto this field, point them out, or get them out of here? You don't live in Cleveland. You live in Cincinnati.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
That is the farthest thing in the universe from the truth.
Hello, everyone, live. It's the Dan Scott Show. And right there is your host, Dan Scott.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the program. I am your host, Dan Scott. Good to have you with us as we begin a brand new week on an overcast day. It's going to be kind of like this, I think, for a good portion of the week, and it kind of mirrors the mood around these parts after what took place here at Powelton Stadium on Saturday, a 27-10 Furman loss to the Citadel, and surprising not only perhaps in the result, but in the way it happened, the fact that the Citadel pretty much dominated that game from a physicality standpoint and rolled up to the 27-10 win. What that means as far as the standings at the halfway juncture of the conference season, where do the Poweltons go from here? All of those are questions that are going to begin to be answered this week, and we're going to do our best to keep you abreast of those answers as they become available. Coming up on the show today, we will visit with our good friend Don Clardy, member of the 88 championship team here at Furman. He is in every Monday to offer up some analysis of the previous week's game. And Scott Keeler from the Furman Sports Report will also be here. He'll be talking about Furman-Citadel. He'll also be talking some high school football with us. And then the show's going to wrap on, as it does on Mondays, about 10:45 or so we can get downstairs for the Clay Hendricks press conference, which will stream live on Furman's Facebook page beginning at 11 a.m. And one thing that we have come to really appreciate about Clay Hendricks, he is not a guy who's going to bury you in a whole lot of coach speak. He is pretty frank when it comes to speaking his mind on the way his team played or did not play. So I expect this press conference to be full of some pretty good stuff after he's had a chance to break down the film and start moving on now towards Western Carolina this week. So we'll talk a little bit about that with Don and with Scott, and then you can watch that press conference live at 11 o'clock on Furman's Facebook page. And then tonight at Shortfields in downtown Travelers Rest, it's the Clay Hendricks radio show where we'll rehash a lot of the stuff that'll be talked about down here. But we'll be on location at Shortfields. Would love to have you come out and see us. It begins at 7 o'clock. If you can't, you can, again, watch it live on Furman's Facebook page and, of course, listen on our flagship radio station, Fox Sports 1440. As far as the game goes, it was just one of those days. It was a dreary, rainy Saturday, and Furman played like it was a dreary, rainy Saturday. Not any, well, really no sunshine at all outside of the first drive when they got the opening field goal and went up 3-0. After that, it was pretty much all Citadel. And when you look at some of the numbers in the game, the things that jump out at you, obviously beginning with Darren Granger struggling like we've not seen him struggle before, completed just 5 of 25 passes for 44 yards in the game, and just had an incredibly difficult time throwing the football. You know, whether the wet ball had something to do with it, whether the wind had something to do with it, I don't know. We'll find out a little bit more from Coach Hendricks in the press conference coming up at 11 a.m. But there were some plays to be made in the passing game, and we simply couldn't do it. And it's remarkable from the standpoint that it's a Citadel team that gives up on average almost 250 yards through the air per game, 248 as a matter of fact. So they held us to 204 yards below their normal average passing yardage allowed. And then Brandon Rainey, nothing fancy. I mean, we call them a triple option team, and they did run a few what you would consider to be triple option style plays. But more often than not, what were they doing? They were loading it up on one side or the other. Rainey is taking the snap, and he's simply rolling and running behind a bunch of big bodies, almost like student body right or student body left. He carried 26 times for 165 yards on the day. When they did pitch it to one of the A-backs, Nakim Njoku only had 4 carries, but he had 58 yards, 14.5 yards per carry, 23 was his long. Remus Butler also had 41 yards on 8 carries. It was Clay Harris, the B-back, with 11 carries. He was the next most used rusher besides Brandon Rainey, and that's been their mode of operation all season long. One thing they did not do was hurt us deep in the passing game. We did a good job of for the most part, not allowing defenders to get or receivers to get behind our defenders. But in the grand scheme of things, it didn't really matter. They were able to pound it out on the ground with Rainey doing most of the damage again and rolling up to a 27-10 victory. Devin Wynn did have 81 yards on 15 carries to lead Furman's offense, but again, it was the lack of production in a major way in the passing game that I think left everybody walking out of this stadium scratching their heads. And it'll be interesting to see what Clay Hendricks has to say about it today, what George Quarles, the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach later on in the week, has to say about it. One thing we know is Darren Granger is a supremely talented young man. He is very, very confident. I expect he's going to bounce back. They're going into a game this coming week at Western Carolina where they should be able to control the ball on the ground and use that perhaps as a game to rebuild some confidence for Darren Granger. But I think if we learned anything this week against Citadel, you take nothing for granted. You absolutely take nothing for granted in this game. The rest of the scores in the Southern Conference, it began, of course, on Thursday night with UTC eking out a 13-point win over ETSU, and sitting at 3-0 now, Chattanooga sits alone atop the Southern Conference. They still have 5 conference games remaining, but at the moment, they are 3-0. We'll look at the standings in just a moment. Wofford, no trouble with Western Carolina, 59-7. And VMI, much like Furman, kind of came back to earth a little bit. They go to Mercer and drop a 34-27 decision there behind a career-high 193 yards rushing from Tyree Devison, their bowling ball of a running back down at Mercer. One note from that Mercer and VMI game, quarterback Robert Riddle suffered an apparently gruesome lower leg injury. And I want you to take a look at a photo that I actually got off of Bobby Lamb's Twitter feed. Both teams in unison gathered around the ambulance as Robert Riddle, the Mercer quarterback, is being loaded into the ambulance and taken off to the hospital. He is should have, in fact, already had surgery on that leg, but there was not a whole lot of information about it, except that it was just described as a serious lower leg injury. And then you see this picture with the VMI players joining the Mercer players in forming a semicircle around the opening of that ambulance to show support for Robert Riddle. First of all, it's a class move by the folks at VMI. And secondly, it shows exactly how tough and how bad that injury was to Robert Riddle. So our thoughts and prayers go out to that young man, and just pray that surgery is able to get his leg headed back to 100%. Never mind football. You hope he can come back and play, but just to get the leg right is the most important thing and the initial thing they have to worry about. So just thought we would kind of flip that out at you a minute, let you take a look at that. I just thought it was a class move by VMI to join Mercer in that semicircle. It's almost like a good old-fashioned prayer circle, to be honest with you. So here's what the standings look like after this week's action in the SoCon. There's Chattanooga at the top. Wofford and Furman are both 3-1. VMI now 3-2. Citadel even up at 2-2, as is Mercer and Sanford. And then ETSU and Western Carolina both still looking for their first wins at 0-4. If you are a Furman fan, the good news is that you still are in complete control, 100%, of your own destiny when it comes to winning the conference, because you have 4 conference games remaining, beginning with Western Carolina this week, and then you still have on the schedule Chattanooga, VMI, and Wofford in that order in the subsequent weeks after Western Carolina. So all of these teams that are with Furman here or ahead of Furman, Wofford and Chattanooga, Western Carolina down here, VMI right behind them, the Paladins still play those games, and even with the loss of the Citadel, they still have a 1-game lead on the Citadel in the loss column. So as bad as Saturday was, as bad as it was, and it was bad, it is not an unmitigated disaster that cost you an opportunity to win the conference outright or takes you out of the playoff spot. Now, what will happen is there will be a serious tumbling out of the top 10 of both the coaches poll and the Stats FCS poll. Paladins had been number 8, you recall, had just cracked the top 10, and in their first game as a top 10 ranked team, lay that egg that they did on Saturday. But again, all of that aside, the good news is that you get that one out of your system, you correct the mistakes, whatever was going on. Was there a hangover from the bye week? Whatever the case may be, you're still in control of your own destiny, and if you win out, you're going to win the conference outright, and all 4 of those games are most decidedly winnable games without question. I just found it interesting when you think you've got this game figured out, or any game really figured out, there's always one of those reminders that comes down the pike. And on the way in today, on our Campus FM, the Samford win was replaying, and it was near the end. And I heard myself say to David Cobb on that broadcast that it was one of those rare occasions where everything that could go right for the Paladins did go right in a 58-14 win on the road at Samford. Well, Saturday, I think, was just the complete opposite of that, 180 degrees. Everything that could go wrong pretty much did go wrong. And that's why you never get too high or you never get too low with this game. As a coach, as a player, you have to have the ability to flush the wins as well as the losses quickly and move on to the next opponent. That next opponent is in Cullowhee on Saturday. We'll take a break and come back and get Don Clardy's thoughts on this one when we return. This is the Dan Scott Show, live here from the stadium at Furman, and we'll be back right after this. Hey everybody, Dan Scott here, and I want to tell you about my technology partner, Carolina Creative Group. When my show needed a creative technology boost, I turned to Carolina Creative Group. My custom design website is going to take marketing as well as brand strategy and development to new levels. The search engine optimization means that my clients' ads will be seen by more people more often. And if I have any questions, Carolina Creative Group is just a phone call away. Friends, that is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. You can find out all the ways that Carolina Creative Group can help your business by simply calling 864-250-2012. Again, that's 864-250-2012, or simply visit them online at carolinacreative.co. Carolina Creative Group, technology partner of the Dan Scott Show.
Imagine a university. A university where your passion for protecting local water sources is encouraged. And now, your work not only benefits your career, but the health of those in your community and around the world. This is Furman. This is the Furman Advantage.
If you're looking for auto repair, you want superior work, not inferior parts and worse, inferior pricing. Hi, this is Dan Scott. I take all of my business to Superior Auto Care. That's Chris Burkett at 410 Ross Avenue in Easley. He brought my wife's car back from the dead. There's no other way to say it. For 4 months, it had been sitting with a major transmission issue. Chris was able to diagnose it along with some other problems and get it back and running again. Mrs. Scott is happy, and guys, you know how it is. Happy wife, happy life, right? Well, he can do it all for you, from the simple things like oil changes, brake service, air conditioning service, tires, to major engine and transmission work, even electrical work. Works on domestic cars as well as foreign cars. Again, they're located at 410 Ross Avenue. That's Superior Auto Care. Give them a call today at 864-306-1988. Superior Auto Care in Easley.
Let me tell you something, Cowboy. This rookie can really bring the heat.
He's smoky and spicy with a Chipotle style all his own.
It's a new Montgomery Inn Chipotle barbecue sauce. Make it a part of your home team.
Available now at your neighborhood grocer or online at CincyFavorites.com.
All right, welcome back to the Dan Scott Show, Monday edition. I am Dan. Nobody else wants to be, probably for good reasons. Coming up on Wednesday, as always, we will begin our look at the next opponent for the Paladins, Western Carolina. We'll also visit with Dave Glenn of ACCSports.com and the David Glenn Show, our one little venture outside the world of Furman and the Southern Conference that we do on a regular basis. Give us a little more of a regional and sometimes national view of what's going on out there. And then Friday, obviously, a very deep dive into it. We'll also hear from Doug Allison, the Furman soccer coach, on Friday. And if we get an opportunity, our good friend Daniel Hooker from up at Western Carolina will hopefully join us to talk a little bit about that game, help us match that one up. And just as we get set to bring Don Clardy on with us, a reminder that on the broadcast crew this weekend, we are going to have a little bit of a change, not because of the loss or anything like that. We're not kicking anybody out, but Tom Van Hoy will be off for a wedding, so making a one-time return out of his retirement to join us as the spotter this week will be the gentleman we call the Thumb, Jeremy Arnett. He'll be heading up to Cullowhee with us for that one. Looking forward to getting Jeremy back with us, if only for a game. Right now, the celebrity guest line is where Don Clardy hangs out, and he is with us to, if nothing else, Don, maybe provide a little therapy and help us get past that clunker that we saw here on Saturday, 27-10 loss to the Citadel. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Dan. I'll have to tell you, I'm every bit as disappointed as you guys were to see how that game played out. Homecoming obviously needed to keep things rolling, and just really kind of surprised and shocked to see that kind of result. But that happens from time to time.
Any game during your playing career here at Furman you can equate to that one?
Yeah, actually, I don't want to necessarily set expectations for this, but was talking with a teammate of mine over the weekend, and really the Marshall game our sophomore year up at Marshall, which was right about the 5th or 6th game of the season, so a similar time in the season, and we were particularly drawing comparisons to our, Hall of Fame quarterback, Frankie DeBusk. He was a sophomore. Hadn't played a whole lot of games. He had a similar game to what Darren Granger had on Saturday. Really had a tough go of it. Didn't complete very many passes. Had some turnovers, and kind of the rest is history. We went on undefeated from there. So, not necessarily trying to set that expectation, but certainly you can have a game like that with a young quarterback. Particularly, I know there were more issues than just bad quarterback play on Saturday, but we were able to turn that around. So hopefully that can shed a little bright light on this otherwise dreary game that we had on Saturday.
Yeah, and I talked about it earlier. I don't think there's anybody in this building who believes that Darren Granger's not going to bounce back and bounce back in a big way. And you never know how these things are going to play out. And already we can point to the danger of assuming things just by maybe some assumptions that were made heading into the Citadel game. But looking at Western Carolina coming up next, it would appear that's a game in which the running attack should be able to control things, and you can kind of ease Darren back into the passing game and rebuild some confidence that he's going to need down the stretch in the final 5 games of this season now.
Yeah, I mean, everything I've heard about Darren is that he is a very confident kid who will bounce back from this and will not let one bad game shatter his confidence. So, at this point, I don't have a whole lot of concerns about his ability to bounce back based on what I've heard about him, but certainly need to get the ship headed back in the right direction if the team wants this season to be what they hope it can be. And really, this is where the senior leadership has to step up. I mean, I think as we sit here and talk about it, you say, well, you assumed a week ago we were this and maybe we're not that. If you've got good senior leadership, you're not going to go up and down each week based on the polls or what happens in a given week. You're just going to go to work every week. And if you have a bad one, you're just going to go work hard and correct it and make a statement the next game. And that's what they need to do.
Is that a potential issue with this particular team, Don, since you bring up the aspect of senior leadership? Because you look at this team on offense, I think there are 2 seniors who play and get significant time, maybe 3, and the same thing on the defensive side of the ball, just less than a handful. So most of the players who are making significant contributions have anywhere from 1 to 3 years eligibility remaining after this season. So it's not. I get the point. It's not a senior laden team where you would expect there to be senior leadership by default.
Yeah, that's true, and it doesn't have to be a senior, but I do think it's typically going to come from guys who have seen a lot of games, been through a lot of different scenarios. So maybe it's juniors and seniors. Obviously, it's going to be your captains. You would think would be the guys that step up in these situations and try to steer the course. And these younger players who are playing good football can certainly lead by their actions, but really you want them to listen to what these veteran guys are saying and really go out and play with heart and come together. And I just think the veteran leadership, whether the person's a senior, a redshirt junior, a junior, again, typically led by the captains of the team, they've got to right the ship and get things headed back in the right direction. It comes down to hard work and just going to work. And, the coaches, I think, have a pretty good idea about which guys are going to step up and lead that effort.
Visiting with Don Clardy, as we do on Mondays during football season, to get his thoughts. Former Paladin, of course, member of the '88 championship team, and also a little financial advice coming up for you here in just a bit. You referenced that Marshall game, or really maybe any other game where things were going wrong. What's going on the sidelines in a situation like that? Because I know that coaches and everybody, they're talking, they're trying to get things straightened away. They're the eyes in the sky, the coaches in the booths are doing what they can. When things are kind of steamrolling a little bit in the wrong direction, what's that sideline like?
A lot of times it can get quiet and the energy gets lost, and you're just kind of hoping for somebody to make a big play to kind of turn that energy back around for you. So what you hope doesn't happen is it gets really quiet and there's just no energy, but that's what tends to happen when things just go bad, and particularly if you get into the second half. And obviously we've got a lot of sharp kids playing Furman football, so math is not that big of a challenge for them. At some point it gets to be really challenging to figure out how you're going to score enough points in the amount of time you have left. And that's kind of when the energy kind of goes out, the wind kind of goes out of your sails over there. And it's a difficult situation when you get to that point where you feel like you can't get it turned around in the amount of time you have left in the game.
When you see your quarterback struggling like Darren did, he completed just 5 of 25 passes, and then on the other side of the ball, you're having trouble stopping a team that's basically just loading it up and running student body left and student body right. It would be very easy to get discouraged, I would imagine. And I'm like you, we kept waiting for somebody to step up and make a play. And you know what? Give the defense credit, Don. They did. They hung in for a long time in that game, forced 3 turnovers. In fact, 2 of those with the Citadel deep in Furman territory. But the offense couldn't do anything with it and just turned out to be more frustration.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening, one time in the game that I can think about where I was actually listening to you and David Cobb on the radio because I wasn't able to be there in front of a TV or my phone. I think Devin Wynn going down the hash, they had a nice play call in the fourth quarter when they were still down, I think, by 2 touchdowns with enough time. If they could have scored a touchdown, would have had enough time. And just, again, Granger overthrew a wide-open Devin Wynn running down the hash for probably what would have been a touchdown. So it's plays like that. If you connect on that play, all of a sudden I think there were 5 minutes or more left in the game and you're down by 1 touchdown. That's the kind of spark you need to have in that type of game. And that's when those miracles tend to happen, right? That's when you get those big turnarounds that you see on a fairly, happens fairly often. But it takes that kind of play, that kind of spark to get it turned around in those situations.
Yeah, and I would imagine that one of the things we're going to hear Clay Hendricks say in his press conference downstairs here in just a little over 30 minutes is that they left a lot of plays on the field, whether it's incompletions that Granger didn't make or throws that he didn't make or whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's one that kind of stands out because when you're in comeback mode and you're looking for that spark, they had the right play call at the right time. They just couldn't execute it.
Yeah, that's right. And, Coach has been in this situation before, and you certainly got to not pile on one person. And the defense did have trouble stopping them. The offense, every member of the offense had trouble. So just because Granger had a rough day, there were a lot of pieces and parts to that loss, and it certainly one person was not the biggest part of that. So I think, what the coach's job is to get everybody to look at themselves and say, what can I do better to make sure this doesn't happen again? The good news is they still control, what happens to them at this point, but there's no margin for error. So you can't lose another conference game and expect to go to the playoffs. But if they can come together and make a nice run here, which every indication is they have the ability to do that, we'll see what happens.
Before we let you go, as a player, how difficult was it for you to flush a loss like this and turn the page and move on?
I think what you really want to do is get back out there and play again when you've had a really bad game like this. I mean, you want to get back and make things right and get things headed back in the right situation. So, you got to just get back out there and grind. That's part of the grind of the season. Get back out there, correct some things, and do everything you can to make sure this doesn't happen again. And really, you're just desperate to get back on that feeling that you had going into this game, that good attitude, that feeling that, hey, we're good, we can do this. So, I mean, that's the opportunity here.
All right, Don, take a minute to tell people a little bit about what you do and how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, Dan, we just help our clients ensure that they are financially secure. We do that by financial planning, managing investments, risk management. Really, planning is a huge part of what we do for folks. I can be reached on my direct line at 864-679-3849 or my email, don.clardy at N as in Northwestern, M as in mutual.com.
All right, Don. Sounds good, man. We'll talk to you again next week. Thank you for everything.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
All right, that is former Paladin Don Clardy. When we come back, Scott Keeler will be up next. He'll be joining us via phone, and we'll get his thoughts on this one, plus a little high school football update, as we always do. with Mr. Keeler. All that straight ahead as the Dan Scott Show continues in just a moment. Dan Scott here for Todaro Pizza. Some of you may remember my old radio show in Clemson. Todaro Pizza was a sponsor of mine from the earliest days of the show. And if you know anything about me when it comes to advertising restaurants, if I don't like the food, I ain't going to tell you to go there. I love Todaro Pizza, and now Clemson's Best Pizza has finally come to Greenville. Yes, the new Todaro location is located at 116 North Markley Street, right down the block from Fluor Field. Classic, specialty and stuffed pizzas, calzones, wings, and so much more. The No Limit Lunch Buffet is available 7 days a week for just $8. Monday night is cheap pizza night, and you can try your hand at trivia every Thursday. Todaro Pizza has outdoor dining on Markley. It's open late, making it a convenient stop before or after the drive games. Find them on Facebook or online at TodaroPizza.com. Todaro Pizza, 864-603-3500.
For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant more life-changing wishes. Visit Make-A-Wish online now. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
Dan Scott here for the Atlanta Bread Company. What do I like about Atlanta Bread? Well, too much to mention in a short commercial, but here are a few things. Bread baked daily fresh on site, a tremendous selection of soup, sandwiches, and salads, seasonal special additions to the menu, delicious hot coffee, and a bevy of other drink options. And yeah, can't forget about the baked sweet goodies. Dine in or carry out, and when you have the Atlanta Bread Company app, you can order and pay online, then breeze past the lines to the pickup counter to get your food. Experience it for yourself. That's the Atlanta Bread Company, Cherrydale Point in Greenville. If you're looking for a unique dining experience in the Clemson area, let me suggest Four Paws American Pub, where they have specials like Carolina popcorn, a freshly battered fried okra, which is the hottest selling appetizer and side item in the upstate, or the Bulldozer, the signature burger featuring a fried green tomato, Four Paws pimento cheese and bacon with a smoky house aioli, or you can build your own burger or a fresh green salad from a large selection of toppings. And they also have the teriyaki salmon hand-seared over rice or a bed of green salad. Enjoy terrific food at Four Paws American Pub in Clemson. You can enjoy local recipes while watching games on the TVs or relaxing with your pup on the dog-friendly patio. Come to Four Paws, located on Highway 93 in front of the Courtyard Marriott, or call 654-5151 to order for carry-out and tailgating. You need to make tracks to Four Paws American Pub. Hey everybody, Dan Scott. You know, I've been telling you for some time now that I switched the protection of my home and family to Security Complete. I can tell you that I've been ecstatic with the results. Locally owned with more than 40 years experience in the industry, Security Complete uses nothing but the latest technology, which equals low overhead, which equals greater savings to the customer. Fully automated systems with monitoring rates much lower than the competition. Security Complete gives you all this and does not require a contract of any length. Find out more by calling 864-546-0630 or find them on Facebook and Twitter. Security Complete, my first line of defense. Make them yours today.
We're all trying to find our way, forge a path, blaze a trail. The work is hard and the work is personal, but you can't do it alone. At Furman, we're committed to giving you an advantage. The Furman Advantage. We know that graduates who are emotionally supported and who have deep learning experiences in college are 3 times as likely to be engaged at work and thriving in life. At Furman, all students are guaranteed 4 years of rigorous classroom education integrated with high-impact research, internships, study away, and a community of support every step of the way. This is the Furman
Second down and 4. In the pistol. Is your roof leaking or damaged? Do your gutters need repaired? You can Google roofing companies until your computer overheats, or you can simply call the best, Bracken Roofing and Gutter. Whether it's roof replacement, new and remodel installation, roofing insurance claims, whatever your needs, Bracken Roofing and Gutter will simply do it right the first time. And the same goes for gutter screen installations. Forget about balancing on ladders and cleaning your gutters. Let Bracken Roofing and Gutter screen them for you today. Listen, do not settle for subpar work. Get a free inspection today. Check out the reviews on Facebook. You'll see many satisfied customers, and they're all saying the same thing, that they're happy that they chose Bracken Roofing and Gutter. That's Bracken Roofing and Gutter. Call Kyle today at 864-704-5993. All right, welcome back. It's the final segment of the show. We're getting out of here again early on Monday, as always, because of the Clay Hendricks press conference coming up. That'll stream live on Furman's Facebook page here in just about 25 minutes or so downstairs in the team room, and I'll be heading down to help facilitate that a little bit. So Scott Keeler normally is with us here in studio, which is why this particular graphic is up. So we're just going to, I had a little hand pup. I need cardboard cutouts of all my guests is what I need. So just in case something like this happens, I can set the cardboard cutout in the chair here and make it, give the appearance that he is in studio. But he's joining us via phone, the celebrity guest line, to I guess help us further wallow in the mire of Saturday a little bit, plus talk some high school football. Scott, how are you?
Good. There's no, I don't know if you can find cardboard that big, but good luck with it for me.
Yeah, something like that. Your take on Saturday?
I expected it could be about a 27-10 game, not in the order that it went, but there was a couple of things looking back on it. First off, Brandon Rainey, when he's 100%, and I think he was on Saturday, you could really make an argument that guy might be the best player in the Southern Conference, or at least the MVP. Because when he's 100%, that team is a little bit different. And they fumbled a couple times. I think Furman forced those more than fumbling. But he did a really great job running the option. His first play, he runs for 50 yards, and they go down and score on their first possession. And he was healthy early on this season when they barely lost to Towson, when they barely lost to Elon, two pretty good FCS programs, and when they beat Georgia Tech. In that Georgia Tech game, he got grabbed by the face mask and twisted around, and he's been kind of beat up every week since. But I asked my friend Jeff Hartzell from the Post and Courier in Charleston, I was like, is that the best that he's looked, physically, and he confirmed it. Yeah, he's probably back at 100% now and it was just in time for Furman, unfortunately for the Paladins.
Yeah, and I guess the misnomer in a lot of what happened Saturday was the word option. They did run a small bit of option, but Scott, more than anything else they did, they overloaded one side, and Rainey just rolled that way, and they ran student body right and student body left.
Yeah, and Coach told us last week, this team we're going to have to, the Furman's going to have to be prepared to play 4 downs, because this team's going to go for a 4th down, and when you get 2.5 yards of carry, if you go for it every time, that's still a first down. They got a lot more than that on Saturday. And I guess the biggest surprise was, obviously their defense holding Furman to 10, and it was just a thing too where this is still a young team, especially on offense, and you just worry, that coaches also warned about everybody telling you how great you are. And obviously, there was a ton of people telling them how great they were after the Sanford game. So,
visiting with Scott Keeler from the Furman Sports Report. Did you get a sense that part of Darren Granger's struggles had anything at all to do with the weather, or did he just have a classically bad day, completing 5 of 25?
It sure seemed, it was such a weird day Saturday because, it was especially compared to what we've had. There was 95 at Sanford 2 weeks ago. that was a cold day, in addition to a wet day and just a miserable day in the fourth quarter. It was raining sideways. It was like in the fourth quarter when Furman really had no choice but to throw it. I think maybe it's just a combination of stuff. I know that it seemed like wherever he rolled, there was a Citadel guy there too. So I don't know if that's a breakdown on Furman or Tippy Cap Citadel be in the right place at the right time, but he didn't have a whole lot of time to get back there and set his feet either. And so it was just a kind of a strange day all the way around. It was everything was a little bit different from any game in the first half of the season, really.
Yeah. This was the best word I could use to describe it. I've used a couple times already. Is clunker. That's just what it was. We had a classic clunker of a performance, and the one positive that comes out of all of that, Scott, is that you're still in complete control of your own destiny when it comes to winning the conference outright.
Right, exactly. And it's just you gotta. Clay's talked about getting tougher. That was one of his words in his first season here. And I think he does have tougher players, and this is when that toughness is actually going to be tested as well. Coming in, let's be honest, this week, this should be a lopsided win based on everything that people have seen from Furman and Western Carolina this year. But then, if you go and have another record-setting day at Western Carolina offensively, then you got to go to Chattanooga the next week. And is it just going to be this thing where we've had this, you blew out Mercer, come home and play ETSU, and ETSU has a solid defense, but let's face it, they're now 0-4 in the league, and you don't have your best offensive day there, and then you come back and blow out Sanford, you come back 2 weeks later and not have your best offensive day against Citadel. Is it going to be like one of these up and down things, or, that's what we're going to have to try to see about consistency from this team week in and week out on offense.
Yeah, well, that story remains to be told as the season moves on. Quickly, let's shift gears and see what's going on high school-wise. Where were you on Friday night?
I was at Hillcrest watching Bowling Springs and Hillcrest combined for about 250 yards of penalties and about 400 yards of offense. And Bowling Springs won, and let's not talk about that game anymore.
Okay.
That was kind of brutal at times on Friday. But the big game where everybody else was that at Burns, where Dorman came away with a 35-33 win, battle of unbeatens. When Dave Gutschall arrived at Dorman and they threw it all over the place, it was really kind of an innovative thing back in those days to see a team run the spread and throw it all over. But he also would have every so often a trick play, and it seemed like Dorman trick plays never blew up like you see a lot of teams when they try it. And on Friday night, they were leading Burns by 2 with 7.5 minutes to play, and they do a halfback pass, and the halfback is kind of running to his right, and all of a sudden he pulls up and he hits a guy wide open in the end zone. They go up by 9. Burns scores late in the fourth quarter to cut it back to 2, and Dorman recovers the onside kick to seal their win. But that's the biggest game of the year so far in the upstate. Dorman's probably going to be looking at going 10-0 now. Next 2 weeks should be Dorman. They should be heavily favored the next 2 weeks, and so they should be 10-0 coming out of that region.
All right. Anything else from the past week?
Yeah, Daniel and Walhalla had a good one. I'm not sure whether I think it was played at Walhalla. It was 27-27 in the fourth quarter, but Daniel pulled away for a 41-27 win. Daniel's still undefeated, and they probably pretty much have wrapped up that region now. There's a huge game this week, BHP at Wren, which could be for second place in that region. Both of those teams have one loss, and another game a little closer to home on Friday. Greenville and Travelers Rest had a back and forth. And Greenville pulled out a 38-31 win to kind of take over first place in that region from TR. He's having a fantastic season, and now is set up for probably a showdown with Eastside in 2 weeks for that region title. And last week, the regular season, Greenville and Eastside. both undefeated in that region.
All right, so what's coming up this week? What games do you have your eye on?
Like I said, BHP at Wren for second place in that region. Really, Abbeville's last test of the regular season will be Friday. They host Saluda. Abbeville's 8-0. Saluta's 7-1. Saluta's only loss was by a field goal to a really strong Southside Christian team earlier this season. So they're both undefeated in that region. But Abbeville just keeps on cruising. I think Friday night, Silver Bluff has always had a strong traditional program. And then Friday night I saw a stat at halftime where Abbeville had outgained them 350-1 in the first half of their win over Silver Bluff on Friday.
Wow.
So they're just a machine, and but this could be a little interesting on Friday night when Saluda comes to town.
All right, cool. Scott, tell people how they can follow everything you do.
FurmanSportsReport.com and at Scott_Keeler on Twitter, and Spartanburg Herald every Friday night covering somewhere for them.
Sounds good, man. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, that is Scott Keeler from the Furman Sports Reports. All right, we are going to wrap it up now and head downstairs to the Clay Hendricks press conference. Hope that you'll tune that in on Furman's Facebook page. If you can't watch it live at 11 a.m., it archives immediately. And then tonight at 7 o'clock, we'll do it all over again at Shortfields in downtown Travelers Rest, the Clay Hendricks Show on Fox Sports 1440, also streamed live on Furman's Facebook page. I'll be back with you here on Wednesday, and we'll be turning our attention towards Western Carolina. Also visit with Dave Glenn of ACCSports.com and the David Glenn Show. Until then, listen, go out and make a positive difference in somebody else's life, and we will see you on Wednesday. Until then, I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you, and so long, everybody.